few semesters ago I created this animation inside of Fusion, and now let's take a look at the animation and then jump right into Fusion. Welcome to the Fusion node tree, and this is actually everything that you can see. And I'd say we start with the basics. The background looks like this. It's a huge sphere with a texture applied to it, and that texture is created right here. Everything starts with a polygon that goes into a background node with an absurd resolution of 4K. This is totally unnecessary. And this background node is fed into a particle emitter with the style set to bitmap, so what comes in here is going to be the look of the particle. This is then rendered out in 3D. Right here you can see a lot of particles. That goes into a merge 3D. Right here there's a blue noise background, fast noise, is applied to a image plane 3D, and that's merged into this 3D room. This 3D room is then captured by the camera and rendered. This way I can have a lot of rotation and variation in size and so on. Why exactly I've done it this way, I don't know. I probably could have done it in 2D and used these rotation options right here, but that's how I did it a few years ago, and this is the rendered image. It's in 8K, a really high resolution, but it's needed because the sphere of the world, which encompasses the sun and the little planet, is so large. If it was lower resolution, you could really begin to see pixels in the background, and that didn't really look nice. And then some post-processing with a brightness and a bit of glow. And this glow really made the background look more interesting because there's these textures in the background. And finally, I downloaded this paper texture and merged it over with the operator set to overlay. This brightened it up again a bit, and finally I mapped this onto a sphere. But because this is run by particles, it's really inefficient and it slowed this whole node tree down by a lot. To get around this, I took a screen grab of this right here and just imported the screen grab. This way Fusion doesn't have to render the particle system and it becomes a lot more stable. I used the same technique down here for the sun. This is a 4K single image stand-in, not animated. I somehow lost the animated high-resolution proxies. I created them using a particle system down here. This is a noise texture node, which is mapped onto a sphere. I then created a merge and a camera and rendered this. Why exactly I used a sphere, I don't know. As I said, this is heavily inefficient, but that's the way I did it back then. After that, I added a fast noise, which is cut out by an ellipse, added soft glow and got this. And with a color corrector, well, I added orange. This was never supposed to be the final look. I wanted to have highlights and lowlights for the particles to be created in different color variants. There is a fast noise with an ellipse mask feeding it, just to have a bit of a corona, you could say. And there's a background in this muddy red color, which is laid below, just to fill in the gaps, you can see right here. But the corners didn't just seem right, so I added another ellipse, just the border, and well, in a yellowish color, so we can have something like this. This went through brightness and contrast, and then there's a lot of vortex nodes just to give it a bit more variation. This just didn't look like a sun, this is more like an angry pizza. I added a lot of softening, and now we really get somewhere. This begins to look stylized just because of the soft and sharpen turned down pretty much all the way on small detail and a bit on everything else. But the look is created right here. There's a polygon node fed into a background node, which then again is fed into a P emitter, and then that emitter is rendered, and that will now take an eternity, and it's really close. I just added a paper texture on top as we saw before. Let's take a look how long it takes. Yeah, each frame takes seconds. It's not frames per second, it's seconds per frame. But 1206.9 seconds per frame is probably an overestimation. It takes really long, and you see why I chose to render this out as a proxy file. This is how it looks behind the scenes. It's a 3D room with this 2D paper planet. It's also in 3D. Let's take a look at how it was made. Everything that's related to the planet is up right here. Let's start with the clouds. These are really just one cloud put onto an image plane, duplicated with duplicate 3D, and then rotated using a transform node. And yeah, that in the white speed. Next is the chimney, which is unnecessarily large. It's 1K by 5.8K in resolution. I really shouldn't have done that because that Fusion didn't like that high of a resolution. It's a simple image put onto an image plane 3D, which is animated right here. And the animation is just, well, keyframes on the rotation and so on. This right here is the telescope arm, which was created in After Effects because it's a pain to link all of these little tiny elements. It would be a staircase like this times 2, and I actually created this element. It worked in Fusion. There was no reason to use After Effects. The only thing is I had to reposition an anchor point and the whole thing flew apart. I didn't bother redoing it again because linking different layers in After Effects is just so much faster, and that was a time thing, not a Fusion can't do it thing. As you have seen, this telescope arm is not linked up. I used the bend node from the Crocodile script, which is unfortunately disabled at the moment, but hopefully it comes back soon because it's really a great plugin for motion graphics. And that, as the clouds, is just piped into the mainstream. It's really similar for the telescope. It's just an image put into 3D, and then there's also an animation going on. The chimney has a twig up its sleeve. These clouds are fed into a particle emitter with the style set to bitmap. Then I added an P-avoid to make them follow the chimney texture right here, that they hit this green thing. And to give it a bit more variance, I added a P-turbulence, and well, then it's rendered, put into an image plane at the same position of this chimney. Then it looks like smoke is coming out of a chimney. The planet is just one, again, enormous illustration of 8K by 8K put onto an image plane. And it's really nice to just float around this little teeny tiny planet. Then there's the fence. Again, it's put onto an image plane with some animation somewhere, like this little stone walkway. It's just animated on using an ellipse mask, and that's combined right here to give you this final animation. The fence is behind the planet. Let's take a look. And that's really the advantage. You can hide your stuff behind the planet and just make it pop out like this. Again, the house is just hidden there behind the planet, just so that you can't see it with the camera. And here's something special happens. Everything that's related to the house is running through this transform node, and this transform node is actually the point where the house is rotated up. The ground floor really is just this animation using the transform 3D node. The first floor is a bit more special in that regard. These elements, those are the elements of the first floor. They are split up like this, and then they stair step on top of each other with the anchor point set at the upper edge or the lower edge, depending on from where you look at it. I control the rotation using an expression, and that really just points to this custom tool, which has erster Stock Ausdehnung, which has a number value that goes from 90 degrees to 0 degrees. These transform nodes look at this value right here using this simple expression with an alternating pattern of plus and minus to get a ripple right here. Let me know if you want to learn more about basic expressions like these that can help you simplify things, because right here, if I have to redo the timing, I just have to adjust one value in the keyframe editor instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values, which I have to keep track of. But it's not ready yet. To get some 3D lighting effects, I just added an ambient light to increase the brightness overall, and then a spotlight, which gives me these shadows and highlights. That again is put onto an image plane 3D and pipe down this main stream. Now there's only one thing left, and it's right here. This is the roof texture, and I had to generate proxies, which are really low resolution because otherwise I couldn't get the timing right because Fusion was just so slow. But again, the main files are like 8K by 7K in this case. Yeah, you really shouldn't do that because Fusion does not like it. Yeah, and the split really is just a rectangle mask which is inverted to get a split that's just equal. And right here there's a little tiny extra cutout for the telescope which will dock on right there. You might have seen that these image planes do not exist right here, and that's because I keyframed the visibility to start at the frame where they are needed, just to get them out of the way so that they don't show up by accident in the final animation. And then it's really just keyframing the animation with the 3D pivot point being right here at the edge of those two roof parts. And with some crazy keyframing, I got this flapping effect, and then I just moved the whole roof construction forward so that it appears in front of the first floor. Okay, and then let's take a look at the final 3D room. This will again take a while until it's loaded in. That's the whole little tiny paper planet broken down. If you have any questions, leave them down below and I will try to answer them. That's it. Have a nice day and see you later.